Hey, everybody, we're here with a very special guest concerning a very important topic, data centers, which the Scranton area may be loaded with very shortly. Now, Paul, who was the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under the Reagan administration, has a lot of understanding of how the economy works and what would be going on with these data center investments. So, Paul, in layman's terms, you understand it much better than I do. So, what is the problem economically with data centers, Paul?
Larry, it's hard to get your mind around it, and I haven't followed it from the beginning because I've been involved with other issues. But I've made some notes that I think are reliable that will help us get an idea of what's actually happening. And the problem, Larry, is that the AI, the artificial intelligence, the AI investments, they rapidly depreciate because the rate of change in development is so high. And so the rapid depreciation brings the result that the rapidly growing loans that finance the investments, you've got rapidly growing loans financing rapidly depreciating investments, and this can overwhelm the cash flow of the companies and the available investment funds. So I made a few notes, and let me go through them before you begin the questions, so that it doesn't get too jumbled up, that we might be able to follow it.
I'm already confused.
Okay. There's a company, OpenAI.
Right.
And this company has contracted to spend more money than the company has. The money is to go to Oracle. So they've made a commitment to buy something from Oracle for which they haven't the money to pay. Now, on the basis of the expecting incoming revenue from OpenAI to Oracle, Oracle announces it's going to buy massive amounts of AI chips from NVIDIA. NVIDIA then makes a $100 billion investment in OpenAI. In other words, it's a credit circle. NVIDIA's investment in OpenAI provides OpenAI with the money to go to Oracle, from which Oracle can buy the chips from NVIDIA. So you've got a credit circle. Now, one of the big problems is that the data centers that are being built depreciate rapidly because of rapid developments in the technology, in the computing units. They've gone from CPUs to GPUs. Now, what does all that mean? More in technology, more than I know. But what a CPU did, it did its computations in sequence. And a GPU does it in parallel, simultaneously. So the GPU is much faster. So all the investments in CPUs were wiped out by GPUs. So that gives you some explanation or some way to understand how rapid this technology changes. You move from sequence to parallel. Now, if the companies underestimate the speed at which their investments are depreciating, their expenses will exceed the revenues. And then the high stock prices with high PE ratios can collapse. Now, Michael Burry, who alone saw the collapse of the mortgage bubble in 07, 08, he's concerned that the money committed to artificial intelligence exceeds the money available. and therefore the AU bubble will pop. Now, it seems to be the investment capital going into the data companies that are, or let's put it this way, it is the investment capital going into the data companies that's keeping the bubble inflated. The investment capital takes the place of the missing earnings. So when this problem is recognized, the investment capital will slow down or cease, and collapse will follow. Or so the skeptics think. And that seems to be Michael Burry's view of the situation. Now, another problem that seems to follow from the short asset life of AI technology, such as what we've talked about, the graphics processing units, the rapid change. This short asset life and the need to constantly reinvest in the new technology, it's estimated that within 4 years, the investment demand to renew rapidly depreciating assets will hit $3 trillion. And the amount of investment capital needed to replace the depreciated investment in the massive data centers that Google and Microsoft are building, that's what it's going to take to keep them going. You see, the data centers are not a one-time investment. They are a huge recurring expense because of the rate of change in the industry. So, again, Michael Burry, of the Big Short fame, thinks that those invested in data centers face a depreciation tsunami so large that they are now, like Amazon already, focused on cutting back elsewhere, such as eliminating jobs, in order to have the money to deal with the depreciation tsunami. So Amazon just recently announced a 14,000 job elimination.
Right.
So even the firms building these data centers are beginning to understand that it's a troublesome situation. And another problem is that rapidly depreciating computing units, like the CPUs were wiped out by the GPUs. These things are changing rapidly, but despite the rapid depreciation, they're being used as collateral to finance loans. So you've got, and not only that, you've got new businesses, they're called neoclouds, and they borrow money and use it to offer computing units for rent. So they're borrowing money to buy rapidly depreciating computer units, which they rent and are going to run out of life quickly, and they won't be able to rent. And as the business is rapidly growing, there quickly will be hundreds of billions of loans based on rapidly expanding collateral.
Right.
So to get around this accounting problem, which has a major hit on earnings, because you're having to constantly replace depreciated assets.
Yeah.
To get around the problem, the life of the assets is being extended. It was 3 years in general, now 6 years. So by doubling the assumed asset life, you spread out the hit on earnings from all the profits having to go into new investments. But if reality doesn't support a 6-year life, the company's in deep trouble. It simply won't be able to renew its investments or service its loans. So you see, a company can have reported profit but no cash flow, because reported profit doesn't include the capital spending they're having to make.
Right.
So a company without cash flow, it can't service its loans. And so on November 11th, Bloomberg had a good article explaining this situation, which seems to embody a major crash. And recently, Mike Ferris of Coffee and a Mic, he interviewed Jack Gamble about these dangers. And so listeners who want to have a longer article, more detailed explanation, or who want to listen to an hour's interview with Jack Gamble explaining what these in more detail than I've given, they can get a firmer grasp. But as you and my readers know, I'm more interested in the societal effects of artificial intelligence than in a market crash resulting from it. And the societal effects are more deadly than a market crash, no matter how major. So, Larry, I think that's my explanation of why the situation is dicey. And it's dicey enough that there are rumors that Michael Berry is shorting it.
All right, Paul, before we get to the societal effects, which are profound and extremely harmful in the long run, bring it back to my area. It's a big issue here now in the Scranton area. They're bringing in clusters of data centers. The politicians are going along with it. They say there's nothing they can do to stop them, blah, 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 blah. It's suddenly been thrust upon the public. There's a lot of opposition. So if this happens financially, to what you're saying, what happens to the data centers in the Scranton area that are currently being planned and soon to be built? What happens?
Oh, they can turn them into housing for all the immigrant invaders.
In other words, the data centers may not be able to operate once they're opened?
I think, Larry, there's a possibility that all of the big names, Planeteer, Nvidia, Microsoft, even Google, they all go bankrupt.
Really? The biggest corporations now worldwide, they're in danger of going bankrupt over this.
Well, they're caught in this process of massive sums. These aren't millions of dollars. These are like the forecast that they themselves are making. It's 3 trillion.
Yeah.
These are rapidly depreciating assets that have to be renewed. So it's a huge demand for capital investment. So already, apparently, there are no profits. And what is keeping the process going is new investment capital pouring into the firms, which takes the place of the profits. So they can use the investment capital to renew the rapid depreciating investments and service their loans. Well, sooner or later, somebody's going to say, hey, where are the profits? Well, why are we pouring all this investment in here? There's never any profits.
Yeah.
And it can't be because the now, of course, if all of a sudden AI has nowhere else to go, it runs up against a brick wall. There's no more advancement. There's no more rapid change. Uh, there's nothing to replace the GPUs like the GPUs replace the CPUs. And if that happened quick enough, it could stabilize because there wouldn't be this buildup of a tsunami of depreciating assets that you've got to replace with the new ones, or you're out of business.
How likely is it to stabilize?
I have no idea. It looks like the AI development is more rapid than people thought.
Yeah. Yeah, they say this is
The
just the beginning.
investments, whatever the data centers that had the CPUs, I guess they had to get rid of them and get into the GPUs. Uh, but when this starts off, it's more livable than it is after it's gotten so large that they're talking about 3 trillion in rapidly depreciating assets. That's different from 300 million in rapidly depreciating assets. And so that seems to be the problem. The whole industry is based on rapidly depreciating assets that have to be renewed and financed. And this is the problem. And as long as new investment goes in, it takes the place of the lack of profits. And as and I began with that credit circle, how OpenAI contracts to buy something from Oracle, and on the basis of the expected revenues from OpenAI, Oracle contracts to buy AI chips from NVIDIA. And then on the basis of this growth, NVIDIA lends $100 billion to OpenAI. So NVIDIA is financing the purchase of its own products from
No
from
irony, right?
the what was the middleman? Oracle. So I don't know. As far as I can tell, the experts themselves are having a hard time figuring out what all this means. But now, for the first time, we're getting information like from Bloomberg. Hey, look, this is problematic. We're getting it from a podcast, Coffee and a Mic, with Jack Gamble explaining it. They got my attention, which I don't normally follow this aspect of AI. I pay attention to the effects on society. And it's got Mike Berry's attention.
Hmm.
You have to remember, the experts don't really know much. If you remember the derivative collapse, which was massive, if you remember that, Michael Berry was the only one who saw a problem.
Yeah.
He couldn't get anybody to sell him a short because they said there's no problem. He had to go around begging these big companies, please let me short these mortgage derivatives.
Yeah.
And they just laughed. And nobody knew what was happening. They were all there and nobody. And he knew and nobody would listen to him. Not even his investors. He finally got some investors. And they kept saying, where are the profits? Where are the profits? Where are the profits? And he had to refund all his investors and get rid of them so he can hold on to his short.
And for those who want a better understanding, a more entertaining approach, the movie The Big Short, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or read the book that Michael Lewis wrote, The Big Short. Um,
All
in
right.
fact,
Well, getting on to the human aspects, the effects on society, which you say are profound and very destructive. Uh, let's get into that.
all right, well, let's start with your question. What happens in Scranton? If they build all these data centers and everything goes bust, it depends on how long before it goes bust. If building the data centers brings in a lot of people, and the people bring in a lot of real estate developers, and they build new subdivisions.
Well, you see, they're claiming it's going to bring a lot of jobs to the area, but
Yeah,
after the construction phase,
yeah,
to run these computerized data centers, there's not many permanent jobs, not masses of permanent jobs like the old industries brought into the Scranton area.
yeah.
So they're also
And,
claiming that it's going to lower electric rates, but PP&L, is our local electric provider, already said it's going to raise them because consumers have to share the cost of building the infrastructure to hook it up to the power grid that sends it not only to Pennsylvania but to other states as well. And they're also claiming it's going to lower property values, but there's a gigantic ASSAI gas plant on the Naples Keystone landfill in Dunmore and Troop. It's the largest in the world, built at a cost of $160 million a few years ago. They have signed contracts in the billions of dollars for the next 20 years. It was reassessed for $335,000 under the recent reassessment. So it's not going to lower property values. We're taking up the slack. So all the three selling points that they're claiming would be beneficial are bogus. So
yeah, they're
beyond that,
great.
Paul, but now get on to what you were saying about the other profound
Yeah.
effects on society.
Well, clearly it's going to raise utility bills, electric rates, because there's a huge sudden increase in demand, but not supply. So there'll probably even be some forms of rationing or pricing, depending on. But as I understand it, these data centers operate 24 hours.
Right.
And so, the prices will have to go up.
And in other areas, it's gone up three times.
Yeah. Well, that's who knows what you read anymore, you know. But yes, there are reports they've gone up two times and three times. So already. And this stuff is really just getting off the ground.
Yeah.
And it may all go flat before. Or they may get these data centers halfway built and it blows up. If it's going to blow up, which it looks to me like if the account I gave is accurate, it's going to blow up. So, but what else does it do? Well, it isolates people from one another. It displaces massive amounts of people. That's the whole purpose of AI, is to displace people. And again, Larry, it shows a lack of any thought on the part of society, of corporations, of government. Who's going to buy all the products if there's nobody employed? This is why Elon Musk said that it will be the digital revolution that brings in communism.
Yeah.
Because there'll have to be a universal income, or people will have no way to live, and the companies will have nobody to buy the goods and services. And so what it means is the AI digital revolution is destroying capitalism. and private property because it's got a technology that displaces the need for people to work and the consumers to buy the products of the robotic AI factories. So this is something that no one has faced, or you don't see any discussion or any realization. It turns out we've already got a partial universal income with the 42 million Americans on SNAP.
Yeah.
We already have 42 million Americans depending on the working population. The workforce, including the unemployed, numbers 170 million, of which 42 million are dependent on that 170 million for their medical care, their housing, and their food.
Yeah. The workforce is decreasing, and that's part of the equation as well. Just like
and so, if you got already, well, let's see, 42 million is what percent of 170? It's
almost a
it's a quarter. We can estimate it as 25%
yeah.
of the workforce is on a guaranteed income. So we'll have to put the 170 million on with the 43 million because the AI and its revolution displaces people, and you displace people, you displace their income, you displace the market for the AI digital revolution, goods and services. So, and there's no discussion. And of course, AI also has the terrible thing that it basically terminates human autonomy. There'll be digital currency. It makes universal spying. It stops all dissent if the government wishes, because they can simply turn off your universal income. There's no more perfect way to have a total police state in which people have no idea what's really going on, what is real reality, because they're controlled by the narratives that are heavily censored.
Yeah.
And so all they know is the narrative. And because whoever controls the database controls the truth, because what AI does, it searches the database. It can't answer outside the database. It's not sentient. It just has an amazing speed of running through data. So you've got a guaranteed police state. Somebody will use it for that. They're not going to not use power.
No.
And you've got either you get rid of everybody, in which case there's no point of having the AI. In fact, there's no point of having the AI to save money and maximize profits when all property is socialized.
No.
And the profits are distributed in a universal income. So you can see the contradictions, and you can see the complete inability of anybody in the corporate world saying, what the hell are we doing this for? Elon Musk told us, and he's right. What else? How else can the people live if we ain't got jobs because we've got AI? And how can we sell anything if the people ain't got any money because robots don't need to buy things?
1984 is arriving, beginning in 2000.
Oh, it's going to be much worse than 1984. There's no autonomy, and there'll be no realization. At least the couple that got together, they knew there was a real reality. Well, the people living in this new world are not going to know. Look, I think this morning I posted an article, and in the article, I reported that just recently, a 32-year-old Japanese woman had created a chatbot and had just married it. She had married a chatbot. Now, this has to be the first time a human married an artificial creation. So, what is her reality? And people haven't understood that the whole purpose of digital revolution is to create a reality to put them in that has no relationship to real reality. And we see it happening already just on the initiative of people themselves. This Japanese woman created a chatbot and had a marriage ceremony with it. And also in this article, I reported that there are now AI companies that are selling to the public a hologram of a deceased relative or good friend who can be their mentor for life. They will have this relationship with this hologram that can respond to them and answer their questions and guide them through life. And this has already started. Wow. They're now, read I think I posted 3 columns this morning. One of them, I think, has both of those in it. The Japanese woman and the AI companies selling you an artificial creation to be your mentor. And so clearly, people will live less and less in reality. In fact, we have been for some time. Yeah. You know, all the narratives are fake. You know, the narrative that there was no stolen 2020 election. This is now, we know it's fake, but we lived in it for a few years. Oh, there's no theft. We live in the fake narrative of 9/11, the fake narrative of the war on terror. There was never a war on terror. It was a war for greater Israel. We call it but people believe, oh yeah, these Muslims are out to get us, you know. And it's just, and we live in the fake narrative of a Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And just like we lived in the fake narrative of Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, and it's endless, isn't it? I mean,
Epstein, you know,
and Epstein, yeah.
All it was a big frat party, you know, nothing about a blackmail intelligence operation.
Now, during the
control politicians,
during the Biden regime, these narratives were more effective.
Yeah.
But when Elon Musk bought Twitter, changed it to X and opened it up a bit, and now with Trump, who's not proceeding along Biden's lines, it's gotten open again, and so the fake narratives are being exposed. But we're going to reach the time when, again, you can't expose them because they simply cut you off.
You could expose them, but then what happens after that? And Paul, that brings us back to something we've discussed before about Trump, the Trump factor. Try to change some of this, trying to reverse some of this. But as you've said repeatedly, there's only so much he could do because he's being blocked still, like he was in his first term, even more, in every aspect, by the courts, by prosecutors, by the entrenched people in all these government agencies. So, you know, how effective is he going to be to either turn it around or merely arrest it?
Well, there I think you're talking about the fake news and the censorship, and it's institutionalized. It's institutionalized in universities and in the media, and he won't be able to get it out. Maybe he can get it out of the military, but that's unclear even. But AI is also being rapidly institutionalized, and the objection to it is almost non-existent. The communities where they decide to plop down all the data centers, they will be immediately impacted with high electricity bills. I've heard also that these data centers damage water, that they have many effects that people haven't thought about, or may have many effects that haven't been examined because the development was so rapid, there was no time for anybody to think about anything. Yeah. It was all you could do to keep running, to stay up with it. And it produced a big investment boom, all this enthusiasm, and nobody can think. You don't have time to think, you have to act. and that's basically what it's been. Once it took a while to get it launched, but once it got launched, boom, it was just running like, they were doing less than 4-minute miles. 9-second, 100-meter dashes. I mean, yeah. And there's no time to think. And anyhow, as I think we've made clear, you and I today, there are economic aspects of it that appear to be extremely problematic, and there are social aspects of it that clearly are problematic, and no one has yet addressed what happens to the people. And either they've got to be exterminated, or we've got communism. And what will the people do? They haven't got any work. There's no career. If the ones that have ambition, what will they do? Are they all going to become great artists or great musicians, or why will they be needed when AI can make music and make movies?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
so these questions aren't on the horizon.
Yeah.
And Mike Berry has raised the question about, hey, is this another impossible situation? You remember what the real problem was with the mortgages? Well, first of all, I think that was the first time Wall Street really got involved with consumer debt. That was the first time the consumer debt was turned into bonds.
Yeah.
The Wall Street would market. Well, you may remember during that period, there was a huge real estate boom, and there were all kinds of house flippings. I remember in my own neighborhood, people would run in and buy a house for $500,000, and 2 months later sell it for $700,000. And somebody would buy the $700,000 house, and a month later sell it for $1 million. And so even people who could not afford a mortgage would try to get one because they didn't intend to keep it. They were going to flip it and make some money before any expenses came to them, such as property taxes or anything. And there were all kinds of companies appeared that were totally dishonest, that would issue anybody a mortgage, who would lie about their credit So you had people unemployed getting $1 million mortgages. And so all of these mortgages were feeding into Wall Street. So, and then they were combined into a bond.
Yeah.
So you had all these different quality mortgages in a bond, and they had investment grade rankings. And then what they started doing, they would get all these things and they would divide them into tranches.
Right.
The first tranche was investment grade, and then near investment grade, and I forget how many they had. And then the bottom one is junk. Well, nobody wanted the junk ones. So after they sold off the ones people would buy, they took the bottom tranche and they divided it again. Investment grade, near investment grade, junk. And they started selling junk bonds as investment grade. And when Mike Burry discovered this, he said, well, this has got to collapse. This can't be. And no one could see it. He couldn't even get firms to sell him a short.
Yeah.
So you can't count on smart people seeing what's going on and doing something about it before it blows up or before it gets out of hand.
And I think, it's not so much that they didn't see it, or at least some of them. They saw it, but, short-term profit, what the hell? What happens in the future? They already made their money as they saw it. So they chose not to see it, correct?
They didn't look for it. I don't think they saw it. No, I don't think they did because of the response Burry got. It wasn't like they were saying, shut up, let us make money for another 24 hours.
Yeah.
They were just saying, it's no problem. It works. It's working. People were getting huge bonuses.
Yeah.
Huge bonuses. There were hedge funds and people making $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
And of course, New York was busy taking advantage of these huge bonuses. You could go into hotels and you could get a martini on the rocks, and the rock would be a 3-carat diamond. It cost you $10,000. So you'd take your girlfriend for a drink and buy her a martini on the rock, and that was pennies out of your $600 million bonus. So they don't bother to think. Why think about all these gift horses? I mean, so anyhow, Larry, I think this has been a reasonable program. People need to be aware that there does seem to be an economic problem that could blow up, and it could be huge because I don't know this, but it seems that it's the big high-flying companies, it's the big powerful companies that are exposed. It's Microsoft and Google, I think, that are building the data centers.
Yeah. And how much of the market investment do they represent? They're
Oh, well, I suspect that all the companies involved in this, they probably account for all the rise in the stock market.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. NVIDIA is the one that has the AI processors. I think they cost thousands of dollars a piece, or tens of thousands of dollars for one processor.
yeah.
And then you've got what they call the neo clouds. These are the companies leasing this stuff. And so you don't have to buy it. You can lease it or rent it. Oracle OpenAI, Amazon, I mean, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, Planeteer. I mean, they're the ones that are faced with these challenges. So it could be bad. And then we have all the challenges to humans. You know, if you live in an artificial reality, you are essentially exterminated.
Yeah.
You know, you have no idea what's going on, and you're exterminated. So they give you a guaranteed income and stick you in an artificial reality, and that's the matrix.
Yeah.
See, and but who's going to get you out of it? There's no Neo. There's no Neo to rescue humanity from the matrix. So it's. I'm just glad I'm the age I am, because it looks like a horrific future. It really does. It looks really horrific.
Well, you know, before we close, we should assure our viewers that both of us are real. we're not an AI construct. But next time we're on, supposedly it's us.
Yeah,
Beware, it might not be us.
that's right. We could very easily be replaced and have us saying something that's totally untrue and contributes to putting people in an artificial reality. Of course, they're doing it to themselves, like that Japanese woman. She's already, and like the people who are buying these mentors from the dead to guide them in life.
Yeah. And I understand some Hollywood actors are already selling the rights of their AI-generated images to be inserted into AI-generated movies.
Yeah.
So that's where it's going in Hollywood.
Yeah. They demanded to be paid because they were being used without remuneration.
Right. But you'll see some star in a future movie that's AI-generated. It's not that star. And the movie plot was generated AI as well. Anyway, all right. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under the Reagan Administration, has a vast understanding of how the economy really works. Thanks for being with us and explaining what may be ahead, what dire circumstances may be ahead with these AI data centers. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I hope I got it right. If not, they can go find that Coffee and a Mic interview with Jack Gamble and find that recent Bloomberg article. And then they can go through it in more detail themselves. But I think I got it right.
Till next time, Paul.
Till next time.
Bye.